like one of those dreams where you have when you're driving the car. And I don't know why I have so many car examples, but the car just doesn't have brakes. It's like it doesn't stop at the red lights. You're just feeling like out of control so much. And that's how I felt.
ADHD reWired, episode 414. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD reWired. Today's guest is Danielle Caron. Danielle is a fresh graduate as of spring 2021. She has a master's in mechanical engineering, and she was very recently diagnosed with ADHD. She has learned a lot about herself after receiving her diagnosis, especially after listening to this podcast. She felt some imposter syndrome after receiving her diagnosis, but has fully embraced it after learning about the symptoms and how it presents for herself. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you.
So, first of all, how did you make it through to your master's degree without knowing you had ADHD?
It was a struggle. I really enjoyed the structure of classes, and I think that doing different things all the time and going different places really just kept me occupied, interested. I liked what I was learning, and things definitely got hard when COVID hit and I was just at home. Cried a lot. It sucked. But then once I started full-time work, I kind of realized that, maybe I should look into this more. So
was it the nature of needing your time to be more self-managed versus like the schedule of academia?
Exactly. Like I work remote, so no one was watching over me all the time. It was just me. It was all on me to regulate my time, and it was difficult. So I looked into it, and I'm glad that I did.
Were you surprised in any way or more relieved?
I was a little bit surprised, I think. And I was also very relieved just to have figured something out about myself. I was surprised just because, I had good grades going up. I was a good student. I enjoyed school, but it really explained so much about my struggles during that time and during all of the times. So I think both, for sure.
What were some of the common struggles you had growing up and through higher ed?
Well, I was really hyper as a kid, first of all. Like one of my middle school English teachers would just call me Squirrel. Like that was my nickname for her. And I just loved it. I was just this wild child who was like weird and quirky and total nerd. I liked school. And then as I got older, it kind of developed into just this restless feeling all the time and just having this huge difficulty in concentrating on these big tasks with school and, especially working from home, like buzzing around all the time, just cleaning the apartment to have something easy to do and just to get myself like ramped up for the hard tasks. And it was stressful. I felt this internal restlessness all the time. Like I couldn't quiet my mind, and it was hard to do the things that I was supposed to do. And yeah, like that was the main thing.
So for you, was it more of a cognitive restlessness, like the brain just always looking for something, felt very unsettled? Yeah, so not as much as the physical hyperactivity, but just more the more cognitive hyperactivity.
And I realized that when my body was moving, I felt a little bit more calm too. So it could have been a little bit of that. And I like to run, and I realize that when I'm on my runs, my body has something to do and my brain feels a little bit quieter, which was really nice. And that's why I enjoy that. And I was kind of a coping mechanism that I just picked up without even really knowing that it was just really helping my ADHD.
Nice. So you're pretty new on the discovery of having ADHD. And one of the things that I want to explore with you in this conversation is to have it be more of a coaching conversation. That's one of the things that I'm going to be experimenting more with here on the podcast, is having more coaching conversations. So I want to just let you sort of set up what it is that you are interested in getting some coaching around.
So I think that one of the things that I still struggle with for sure is rejection sensitivity and the emotional regulation that comes with something that I could consider a failure, or I didn't do what I was supposed to achieve, and just getting unstuck from these heavy feelings after something like that happens. Because I will beat myself up over things that I think are really important that I didn't do as well as I wanted to on. There are just so many examples in my life of this too. They go back a long time. Like, I remember as a kid, I got my first B in history. It was just absolute devastation. Like, 6th grade Danielle was inconsolable. My mom, she met with my teacher, who was such a nice man. He was so sweet. And she just told him, just flat out, she was devastated. And I'm just sitting there staring at the desk like, I hate this. I suck. And my teacher's just like, and I actually got a B plus. It wasn't even a B. He said, a B plus isn't a bad grade. And I was like, it is a bad grade. I'm terrible.
So would you say it's driven by like perfectionism, or like?
I think so. It's just because before then, I would have considered myself, I'm a straight A student. I'm a high achiever. I'm smart. I like school. And then
So your identity was very much wrapped up in that.
Yes, it really was. And I put so much pressure on myself because of that. I wanted to continue doing this, and I didn't do so well in history because it didn't interest me. And I realize that now. I just don't care about the past. I don't care. I care about the future, Like, I realized that much after the fact, and yet I still put myself through AP history senior year of high school. And why? Why would I do that? Because I'm so achievement oriented. I wanted to take advantage of all these opportunities that I had. And then I got my first C, but I was a senior at that point. I was upset, of course, but I just thought, I'm done now. C, it's fine. I guess I was still sad for sure. It wasn't that devastation from before, but it was more like, failed a little bit,
So with your new diagnosis, these types of stories, are they starting to change in your mind, or do they still sort of have a bit of that emotional sting to it?
They're starting to change a lot. I don't feel the sting that I felt before. I think that it explains a lot of my reaction to them. And I realized that I'm the most upset about the things that I think are important, or that I feel like I really should have done, which I'm sure, anyone could say that too. But I mean, it just helped me put it together, and it helped me explain why I wasn't interested in this, or, why I didn't do so well. And it's just, whenever I would read a history book, I would read it, and then I would just look up and be like, I have no idea what I just read. I wouldn't be able to, I have no idea, because I didn't care. I just didn't care about history at all.
I think myself and a lot of our listeners can definitely relate to that experience of reading. That was, to me, that was one of the sort of pivotal moments in my sort of ADHD journey at the very beginning. When I was in college and got diagnosed, I remember very, very vividly the first time I took Adderall and reading a chapter of a book, and I actually knew what I had just read, for the first time in my entire life. When I say it was a watershed moment, and because I was literally in a ball of tears because it was so profound, right? So I definitely understand that if you're not interested, it is our brain just is sorry, I'm going to go somewhere else while you're attempting to read these words.
Exactly. My eyes would be on the page. I would go through the motion of the whole reading thing, and then the comprehension would just be absolutely nothing.
So coming back to you said you kind of beat yourself up. Your identity is very much in the realm of achievement. I want to talk about language, because language and the way we think about things is in fact a sort of behavior that we can address through coaching, through changing cues in our environment to sort of prompt us to change the scripts when we do kind of fall back into our very routine ways of thinking. Okay. Mm-hmm. So can you share with me maybe something that very, very recently that was maybe something that you viewed as like something you screwed up and how you're thinking about it?
Oh, yes. Oh, totally. So actually a very pivotal point, we talked about how I was very recently diagnosed, and I was very recently diagnosed. Actually, the day after I received my diagnosis, I had a meeting with my supervisor because the day before, the day that I received the diagnosis, we had a little meeting with my team, and he was talking about how our billable hours on average are low as a team. And, my job isn't just like the billable hours are the ones associated with the projects I work on that make the company money. And I do other things, other stuff that isn't exactly billable. And so he said, if you want to meet with me and discuss your individual billable hours, then we totally can. And I was like, yeah, definitely want to do that. I want some feedback, want to get better. So when he talked with me, and just to give you some context, I was a little sick. Like, I don't know what I had, but it was like the doctor described it as just crap that everyone's getting. And I felt kind of bad, but I was still at work because we had a lot of work to do. And I was like, I want to be there for my team. So I'm at work, but I'm having this meeting with my supervisor. My camera's not on because I look horrible. Like I'm sick. I don't want him to see me. And on top of that, my voice was kind of gone. Like when you're upset, you've been crying and your voice is so small and it's just so like weak. It sounded like that anyway, even if I wasn't upset. So he had this meeting with me and he told me that my hours were actually significantly lower than all of my other coworkers whose hours on average were low. And I'm receiving this feedback. I'm feeling kind of physically bad. And God, I hope he never finds out, but I shed some tears and my voice was the same. So it's not like he could really tell. And I even beat myself up in the meeting with him a little bit. I said, I feel so bad. I want to make the company money. I want to do my job well. This is the one big thing that is my focus right now. It's my work. I want to get better at it. And I don't know. I feel like I could have handled it with more poise,
Like how would you have liked to have handled it instead?
Just receive the feedback, replied in a professional way rather than beating myself up in front of him, even though I was off camera, and just being able to emotionally regulate that better and not have actually cried a little bit, like just accepted it. Tell myself, I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to make this better, even though, I did tell him that. I said, I'm going to be better. I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. And I even sent him a message, the next day as kind of a cleanup. Like, I'm sorry for being a little bit of a downer yesterday. I was a little sick, but I'm going to be better. I promise. And honestly, I have been better, but I've been doing like significantly better because I've been keeping track and it's been great. Have a plan, but I wish that I'd handled it better.
What was the story behind, because I think it's a really good example of when we say that like ADHD is a disorder of good intentions. And when we say, I'm going to do better, like almost like all the time when someone with ADHD says it, like they truly, genuinely mean that, right?
Yes.
The next part of that is though, okay, so how?
Yes. I came up with a plan because we have a certain number that we want to hit. And I keep track of my hours. I just put in the time that I start something, put in the time that I end something, add them all up at the end of the day. And sometimes my projects will be spread over a couple of days. I just made a promise to myself. I'm going to work this many billable hours in a day so that I can add up to this number at the end of a month. And I just kept track of it. I would put yesterday's work in case I worked on the project the day before and today's work and made sure I was hitting that number. and I will stay in the workspace that I am in right now until I hit my goal. And if I don't, like if I feel restless, like if I went to the gym, I would feel a lot better, then I do that and I come back and I finish them.
So let me ask some clarifying questions here. So you were saying that your identity is sort of tied up in your achievement.
Mm-hmm.
And, I heard you say some shoulds about, how you want to be doing things.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also not hearing an underlying story in this particular scenario. What's the internal dialogue that's sort of guiding what you say and do?
In the meeting, I just felt like the world was kind of crashing down, because I'm newly in the full-time workforce. Like I have this one focus. I just hit the ground. I'm running with my new job and I just want to be better at that. I don't have school anymore. School has been such a main focus of mine for so long. And without that, I had this, I just wanted something big to be reaching for and to be told that, you're not reaching far enough. You're not moving fast enough. You're not hitting these goals on this path to this thing. It's like I'm stopped in my tracks. And in that meeting, I kind of forgot that I thought about this, but it felt like when you're at a crosswalk and you get the white man and you start walking. And then for some reason, the end of the street, it gets farther away in your head and it gets farther away and you keep walking and then you're kind of running. And then all of a sudden you slow down and the street, you can't even see the end of it. And then there's a truck coming and it runs you over and you're done. And it's just like this emotional wall like of the world just hits me. And it's like I can't do anything about it.
So in that moment of where you're like, okay, so you're getting feedback that what you, you're trying to do well professionally, and you're getting this feedback that what you're doing isn't really working right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you experienced it.
Yes. It's just because it's such a main focus of mine. And I so want to do well and be good at my job because I enjoy it. I think it's interesting. I enjoy my coworkers. I love working for my company. And because of these reasons, I really want to succeed. So to be told that I was not succeeding, it's just like, what am I doing?
Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll explore more of what are you doing? And how do we address all those the stories that we tell ourselves, and know that if the stories aren't working, we are also the author. So we can change that story. So we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from our coaching community, which includes our award-winning coaching and accountability groups and our growing alumni community. It is the community where the support and growth continue because maintenance is hard and no one should be on their ADHD journey alone. ADHD management is more than just about the tools. It's also about the support we have available to us and having people who understand us. The kickoff event for our upcoming spring coaching season is just around the corner. We are kicking it off this week on Thursday, February 3rd at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. If you haven't already, we ask that all pre-registration items be submitted no later than 5 p.m. Central by tomorrow on Wednesday, February 2nd. If you are listening to this after that registration event, check the website to find out when our next one is. And for the spring season, if you want to join a group with me, I would really encourage you to join us for our kickoff event on Thursday. It will be the first time since 2014 that I will be leading only one group. So if you do want to join in and get one of the 12 spots that I will have available in my section, then head on over to coachingrewired.com, where you can add your name to our spring season interest list to join me or any of us. Registration is by invitation only, so after you've added your name to our interest list, you'll be asked to confirm your email. Then you'll get to watch a 35-minute pre-recorded presentation. It has all the information and details about the group that you will need to know. Next, you'll complete the quiz that goes along with that video. And since we'd love to get to know you a bit more before our registration event, we also ask that you send us a 45-second introductory video. Don't worry, all the details to that will be in the emails that you will get once you've added your name to the interest list at coachingrewired.com. And now for our friends from Australia and New Zealand, we have a group tailored for your time zone this season. Coach Kat Hoyer will be offering her sections on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Time. Keep checking your emails and our website for updates on our next registration event for you. We know that our kickoff event is at 2 a.m. in Australian time, so we probably won't be seeing you at that one. Kat will be there if you happen to be up and want to join us at that one, but we will be scheduling one that is better for your time zone in a couple weeks. So stay tuned. The new spring season schedule is now live and posted at coachingrewired.com. Registration is by invitation only, so don't wait. Join the ADHD program built for adults with ADHD by adults with ADHD and get your name on our spring interest list by going to coachingrewired.com. That's coachingrewired.com. We can't wait to meet you. Support for this podcast comes from Adult Study Hall by ADHD Rewired at adultstudyhall.com, our judgment-free, shame-free co-working community for adults with ADHD, just like you and me. From our weekly guided and facilitated sessions to our 24/7 drop-in room, there are plenty of ways you can optimize your productivity to get more done using real-time accountability. It's only $19.99 a month, and it's free for the first week to try, and you can cancel your membership at any time. If you're looking for facilitated sessions to boost your productivity, join our Ash Plus sessions, which are our themed and guided sessions. We have sessions for decluttering. We have job searches led by Coach Kat Hoyer, who's also an HR specialist. We have sessions for tackling dreaded tasks, for working out, for writing, and more. We are also going to be starting a new Ash Plus session for managing finances, budgets, and tax-related to-dos. That's starting this week, so go check out the events calendar once you join at adultstudyhall.com. The doors are open, and we'd love to have you. Get to know more about our Ash Plus sessions and our 24/7 drop-in room now by going to adultstudyhall.com and join the virtual co-working community built just for us. That's adultstudyhall.com. All right, we are back. So right before the break, you gave us this very nice visual of you. I almost imagined a bad hallucinogenic trip of like you're crossing a crosswalk and all of a sudden your senses become distorted as you're walking towards it, but you're actually getting further away, and then you get hit by a truck. So,
yep.
Would you say that like you internalize and experience any types of any feedback that's like even leaning a little bit on the negative side?
Yes, not always an extreme example, but a lot of the times, yes. Like I can think of a couple of other times when I felt exactly this and probably a little bit worse. It was my last semester in school, and at this point I'm studying something that I enjoy, something that I put a lot of value into, and it was an advanced heat transfer exam. For some reason, it was organized in 4 multiple choice questions, 4 multiple choices with 4 options. You get this feedback right away, how many you got right out of the 4. Then you submit your work afterwards and you can get partial credit for that, possibly. So I'm taking this exam and I felt, probably an even more extreme version of the truck. It was horrible. I got to the first question. I didn't know what to do. I broke down. I just started like crying. I couldn't think. My brain was clouded. And by the end of this exam, I'm just like, I feel like a wreck. I have been like crying into this page. My handwriting is unrecognizable as mine. It is someone else's, someone who is just out of control. And I look and I get my results back. I got 0 out of 4. And that was horrible. I took a day just to try to calm myself down. And because I was thinking, I'm supposed to be good at this. This is what I'm studying. I'm in my master's degree right now. This is a master's level class. I have these expectations for myself. They were not met. I ended up getting, I think, a 30 on that exam or something like that.
How did you think you did?
Very poorly.
Okay.
I did not expect it to go well, but I didn't expect a 0, That was the truck. The whole process of the exam was crossing the street. Getting to each one of the problems was the end of the sidewalk getting further and further away. And it just felt like everything was crashing down,
So what was the story that was it? Did you not prepare well enough? What happened?
I prepared. I went through, the practice problems. I reviewed all my homework, all my notes, like I usually did for a test. And because I was expecting it to go well, because I went through my routine of the studying and all of that, then to just look at this problem and just not know how to do it and feel like it's nothing that I've ever seen before. And I mean, granted, the whole class didn't do very well, but I don't think that I got, even the average score on that one. Like it was definitely below that. And it was just horrible to feel like I was not living up to these expectations that I have put up for myself that were based on the positive feedback that I've received for a lot of my life on other areas. And it was so sucky. Like still graduated, still got that degree, but did not feel good for a couple days.
C's get degrees.
Yes.
But what was the story behind what happened?
I mean,
what was your internal narrative?
I'm at home because it's COVID times. I'm in this space where no one is watching over me. There's no one to keep me in check. I'm not in a test room setting. And I recognized this during the test because I felt like I lost control of my emotions and my ability to really even think during that exam. I got to the first problem and it's not one of those tests where you can look at all the other problems and then go back. You had to do it linearly. And I hated that. It was horrible. It's like you have to sit there and you have to focus on this problem that you don't know how to do, that is making you feel upset and sad. And like, what did you do wrong, Danielle? Like, did you not study enough? And I felt like I did. I had a routine for tests. I enjoyed this material. And I looked over all my homework problems, looked over all the examples we went through in class, all the little pictures that I'd drawn, and to feel incapable and just like I could not control my thoughts and emotions.
At what point did you feel yourself becoming emotionally dysregulated?
First problem, immediate start.
Okay.
Just this anxiety.
Okay. And where did you feel that anxiety?
Everywhere. Just as soon as,
Are you feeling that right now, even just thinking about it?
Honestly, I am back in that moment just a little bit. I feel very calm right now. Like I can tell the story just okay. But it was definitely one of the most horrible experiences in school. Like, I look at this first problem, I'm reading it as I'm going through the sentence, I can just feel my heart rate go up. Like, Danielle, do you know how to do this problem? Have you seen this one before? Where did it come from? What example is this part of? And we were even allowed to have our notes with us. I'm looking, I'm searching. I can feel myself moving faster.
The deception that an open note exam is any easier. It's often, I think, harder.
It is, because you have to pull together multiple examples a lot of the time. And I'm just flipping through rapidly. I can feel the wheels in my brain just start to go faster and faster. And then it's like, I'm out of control, like one of those dreams where you have when you're driving the car. And I don't know why I have so many car examples, but the car just doesn't have brakes. It's like, it doesn't stop at the red lights. You're just feeling out of control so much. And that's how I felt.
Okay. And would you say that this is a pretty similar experience to any scenario where you feel either unprepared or you get feedback that is maybe different than what you were expecting?
I have never experienced anything, I would say, close to those heightened feelings that I felt in that moment ever since then or before then. That was like the worst time ever. But I feel them at a lower level for sure
Okay.
in other
And was this
situations.
one of your last exams of grad school?
Ah, yes, so much pressure.
Okay. So there's probably some of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that you have a lot of these dreams that you in this car without brakes, which is,
Yeah.
very, I think, apropos for ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever meditate?
I wish that I did. The other night I was just trying to fall asleep and I was like, I'm going to think about something calm, and I saw this video of this person snowboarding on Instagram and I was like, wow, that looks really peaceful. This person is really good at snowboarding. So I thought, I'll think about myself on the snowboard to try to calm myself down and chill out. And then I thought of myself on the snowboard and I don't know how to snowboard very well. All of a sudden the snowboard's going way too fast and I'm like, oh, I can't fall asleep. The snowboard is crashing. So it's just, I don't know.
So
It feels like
it
that
sounds like there's
sometimes.
a lot of feelings about feeling out of control.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
And you mentioned when you were studying that you had this like routine.
Mm-hmm.
Routines are great for managing your ADHD. Routines can also sometimes give us the false sense of control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm chewing on that as well.
I'm
I
looking at
like my
I'm looking
routines.
at all my notes and trying to like web everything together here.
Yes.
Um,
Pull it all.
how much effort and energy do you think you spend trying to avoid negative emotions?
Hmm. I would say a bit. I feel like in normal circumstances, I feel low pressure. I enjoy my job. I go to work. But then sometimes different things come up that are not really part of my routine. Like these tests, I try to routinize them, or whenever I would take tests, to make it feel more like I was moving forward, like I'm making progress. And then, the meeting with my supervisor, I don't know what's coming. It's just this uncertainty that has a lot to do with the control. In normal life, I'm pretty at ease. I do have a routine. I like to go on my little run in the morning and then I make my oatmeal and it's great. And I go down to the workspace and I work. And sometimes when that is thrown off, I feel a little bit anxious.
Yeah.
I have a trip coming up. And sometimes when I have trips planned, because it disrupts my normal routine, I feel this anxiety about that,
I can relate to that very much.
Yes.
I've known you a total of maybe 45 minutes. We talked for a little while last week and now here. And you come off as a very just kind of like very positive, kind of bubbly person, right?
Thank you.
You wear a big smile. You have this kind of ease about you. Sometimes I wonder when people come off and are seem very positive on the outside, internally there's so much angst and like anxiety. I'm wondering if that's a little bit of what's going on.
I would say normal life all the time. I smile because I am happy. And it is an outward projection of my feelings on the inside.
Okay.
And I think that when I am upset, you know, like during the meeting with my supervisor, I sound down. I sound sad. When I took the test, I did not look good. I was like panic, crying, just no bueno. And I think that a lot of the times I am really positive and I am really happy, and that shows. And I'm definitely someone who is bad at hiding her emotions. I'm not a good liar. I don't, on the inside right now, I feel at ease. I'm doing good. And like I said, if something was up, It's easy to tell.
How do you do at being able to identify the sort of the range of how like big a problem is?
I think it depends on how big I think it is or how much it presents itself in my daily life. School was a big deal for me because I do that every day. I do homework on weekends, I study during the week, and it was a big deal. It was my life, I would say. Now, work is a big part of my life. Family is a big part of my life. And yeah, like I guess another example, growing up, and I only realized this morning, actually, as I was ramping myself up for the day. I tried every single sport that there is really for, I would say, like 2 years, and then I would quit it because I would receive constructive criticism from my coaches about how to do things. And as a child, I couldn't handle that. And now I totally could. I like to kickbox. They tell me how to do things better. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that better. And then I do. And it's great. But growing up, did ballet, soccer. I tried softball. I did ice skating for a little bit, which I actually still enjoy. Basketball was the worst. It was like the most awkward thing you've ever seen in your life. So quit that hard. I did cross country, did track, and then I would quit them. And I didn't feel too bad, but it was this slight feeling of not being able to achieve what I was supposed to that made me quit. And that made me focus even more on my school, on my academics, because that is what I thought that I was good at.
I'm writing a note right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an idea that I want to present to you that I think might potentially help. Mm-hmm. But we got to take a quick break.
Okay.
So when we come back, I want to share this idea with you, and I want to see if we can come up with a couple concrete actions that can address some of the issues that we're talking about today. So we will be right back. Support for this podcast comes from our patrons who have joined us over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Do you find value and learn something new about ADHD every week because of this show? Are the stories you hear the stories you can relate to? If the answer is yes, and you want to support this podcast, I invite you to join our Patreon community over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. I want to thank our newest patrons, Clayton P. and Autumn H. Thank you so much for becoming patrons. Perks for our patrons start at just $5 a month, and support can start at any amount. At $5 a month, you get ad-free episodes of this show in a separate podcast feed. And at $25 a month, you can join me for our patron-only monthly coaching call. Our next monthly coaching call is on Tuesday, February 22nd at 3 p.m. Central. That's Tuesday, February 22nd at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Whether it's because of the ad-free episodes, our monthly coaching calls, or simply you want to support this podcast because you appreciate the work that we are doing, your support is very much appreciated. Again, perks start at just $5 a month, and support can start at any amount. Thank you again to our patrons, old and new, for joining us. Consider becoming a patron and support the show by going to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. That's ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. And thank you so much. ADHD Rewired is not alone. And next week, we're going live. Join me and the rest of the ADHD Rewired family every second Tuesday of the month by going to ADHDrewired.com/events. Come hang out with me and Brendan Mahan from ADHD Essentials, Will Curb from Hacking Your ADHD, MJ Siemens from ADHD Diversified, Coach Moira Mabin from the ADHD Friendly Lifestyle, and Roxy Martin. And join us in welcoming the newest coach to the ADHD Rewired team, Kat Hoyer. Kat will be joining us for her first live Q&A next week. Find out more about all of our shows by going to ADHDrewired.com/podcast network. And if you really love this show, one way you can show your support is So leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast player that accepts reviews. And personally, tell someone else about this show. And if you like this episode, share it with them. If you are on an iOS device, when you share a particular podcast episode, when the person goes to open their podcast app, if they use Apple Podcasts, it will show up right there that you, their friend, or maybe your family member suggested that particular episode. It's pretty cool. Thank you for listening to this show and all of our shows. A huge thank you from all of us in the ADHD reWired podcast family for listening. We really hope you know that you're not alone. All right, and we are back. All right, so I had this image of you playing basketball when you just described it as awkward, which is, how I often felt in sports myself. It seems like there's this belief that if you're going to do something, you got to do it well and be good at it.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that, I think.
Do you think that gets in the way of enjoying life a bit?
I think that it definitely did more so growing up, for sure.
Okay.
Like, I now enjoy a lot of sports. I like to run in the mornings, I'm not a good runner. I go slow. I walk sometimes. I just do it to clear my head. But I think that I let myself do that because I've accepted that the purpose of this is not to be amazing. It's just to chill out, to clear my head, to be able to think about things.
Well, you have a strong why connected to that. So it sounds like, things maybe sometimes begin as the why is maybe approval from others, something that validates your identity.
I think so. Like the whole sports thing, I went to a small school. The coaches aren't going to tell you that you're bad because they need you on the team. They need you. They need a body there, Like we didn't even really have a softball team for a year that I played because there were so few players.
With your identifying that running, even though you're saying that you're not good at it, that like you enjoy it because you have found another compelling why, right? Because it actually makes you feel good, right? Is there something that you might be able to do that you think you might enjoy that you would definitely not be good at?
Ooh. History, but I don't enjoy that. I'm not good at that. I'm really bad with directions, but I don't know an activity that involves that besides driving places, which is what I do. And I still take wrong turns, but I do enjoy driving.
I'm wondering if there's something, there's the stories. And I think part of what I'm hearing is some of what you've shared is in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. We have these different sort of distorted thought patterns, right? And one of them that I've been sort of picking up on is this sort of catastrophic thinking or making mountains out of molehills.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I think that I am curious, like, sort of what's behind it is like, oh no, what are they going to think of me? Or, oh no, whatever that story is. If there's ways that we can, one, like push against that in a very sort of intentional way by doing something that, I know you said you're a very visual person and you're an engineer, so maybe drawing or art isn't like the best example. Maybe you actually are good at that. I don't know.
So I do like to art, and I am working on a commission piece right over there.
Oh, you are? Okay. So
I do like to art, so that's not, I guess it's not the best example.
Okay. What if you did something that you felt that wasn't your best work?
Yeah, I actually have a whole bunch of unfinished pieces, which
no.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that such a surprise? Like it's sometimes hard for me to start things because I like to see it when it all comes together. And in the process, it feels like such hard work sometimes. I'm working on these two otters right now, and it's like I only got one foot, I only got one little otter foot. I was thinking like something that I know that I'm not very good at that I actually have tried before. I tried to learn how to do the guitar because my dad plays the guitar and I really like the guitar. I think it's like a beautiful instrument. The guitar players who I know, they can just make music all the time in any situation and it works.
And they make it look easy almost, right?
Right. And I'm like, how do they do that? That's
amazing.
amazing.
How much work it took for them to make it look easy?
Probably a lot.
So managing and addressing uncertainty,
Hmm.
identifying when you're even just being able to label a thought pattern as, a catastrophic thinking, and then coming up with sort of alternative ways to sort of reappraise the thought pattern.
Hmm.
Have you ever done any kind of like therapy work, like cognitive behavioral therapy?
Yeah, I did. I went to see a therapist a couple of times, I think a couple of years ago, and it really helped. Like, we worked out a bunch of stuff. I mostly talked about school, honestly, and she drew out my family tree and everything. And I was like, I don't know why we're doing this, but it's kind of fun. But then she moved. So I couldn't go see her anymore. And then I didn't make any effort to find someone else because I liked her so much. And she gave me this warm hug at the end. I was like, you're such a nice woman. So yeah, I did enjoy that though, and I would do it again.
Okay, so I'm looking at the mess of my notes here, and I wrote down uncertainty 3 different times. Um, um, okay, so let's see. When we started this, part of what you were talking about was that rejection sensitivity and that
Hmm.
emotional regulation.
Hmm.
So if there were some patterned thoughts around like the things that tend to like send you into that spiral, what would you say if like, those pattern thoughts were like headlines? What would those headlines be?
Um, you are thinking out of control right now. Your brain is going down the rabbit hole. Um, should you should pump the brakes. uh, Stop paying attention to how fast your heart is beating. Doesn't help. Like, I think that kind of stuff, because it's like the car or the snowboard. It gets hard to stop.
So when you're having any kind of emotional response to something, would you say that maybe the headline is sort of like, "Oh shit, I got to get this under control right now"?
Yeah, and that doesn't help because it's like an
Nope.
alert. It's like you got to stop right now.
It it's sort of like that that Chinese finger trap. Like the more you pull out, the tighter it gets.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Can you try sort of leaning in with curiosity to physical sensations? What I mean by that is, so let's say you're noticing suddenly your heart is beating faster.
Hmm.
Can you notice the sound of it if you kind of close your eyes? Where, like, what part of the heart can you actually feel? And sort of detaching yourself in a sense from it, almost from a real, like, almost like a scientific observer. Because I
Yeah.
think when you try to get really curious about it versus saying, oh no, my heart's beating fast, and like, oh, I'm noticing a faster heart rate.
Yeah.
I'm it just having that gentle kind of distance from the experience and thinking through it in that way. I think one, because it's not really a natural way that we tend to think. It
Hmm.
also forces part of our executive functions to sort of stay online, right?
Hmm.
Versus getting into that just complete reptilian brain of like, oh crap, we're gonna die. The earth is about to end, right?
Yep. Fight or
Right,
flight. Fight or
exactly,
flight.
or freeze, or right. So either one, coming up with a way where because you said you do well when you're tracking stuff. You mentioned that with your billable hours, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And I just saw a big smile on your face when I said tracking stuff. Tell me what that was.
I have a bullet journal and I really like to keep track of my days, and like I put the little things that I'm supposed to do, and I also make it pretty and colorful and artsy, and I like that.
Okay. So there's a couple things that I'm wondering if maybe we can come up with a way to track. One is how often you move forward with something, even when you're feeling uncertain about it. And it's just literally like, maybe it's a question at the end of the day. And it's like yes or no. And I think when you're trying to do things like this, make it easy to track.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people will create this very convoluted, like in this situation, when this is present and that happened, like, I mean, yeah, it's a great way to, if you're really trying to operationalize behavior, but like we have ADHD, we need to make it as simple as possible when it comes to tracking.
Yeah. I actually have in my journal a little monthly thing that I do. I have the month name, and then I have trackers on one side. And it's like, which days did I run? Or which days did I drink enough water? I make it so pretty. And I just put a little dot. That's it. Just if I did it that day. And it's a good way.
Awesome. Things that can also get you in your body, like I think running is great. You said that you would like to get into meditation.
Yes.
How serious are you about that?
I I would really like to do it just because being aware of my body really interests me. And when you said take a moment, step back, like be the scientist to yourself and look at what is happening physically to your body, that made me feel interested. That made me feel like I would much rather do that than freak out.
Because it gives you something to do as well, right?
Exactly. It gives my brain something simple to munch on than just think about everything and nothing at once. So that was awesome. And at my last place that I lived at, I used to do yoga a lot. It was like once a week, I would just go to hot yoga with a lot of times my friends. And it was just this incredibly pleasant experience just to turn your mind off. And at the end of every practice, we would go into Shavasana. It would just feel like the most relaxing thing in the world to just not really think about anything and to have this person who is guiding you through it with this pleasant little voice. And I definitely nearly fell asleep several times because I was so relaxed. It was awesome.
It's interesting because there's lots of different forms of meditation. One of the things that I would encourage you to explore is more mindfulness-based meditation, because it really involves you being the curious observer of self. Like you're not trying to make anything specific happen. Like, yeah, like maybe you're focusing on your breath, but you could also be focusing on the food you're eating or like the way the sun feels outside. You're just being really intentional about a specific sensation or body process. And then when all those random thoughts come into the mind, you just notice like there's thinking, there's wondering if I did that thing, right? And you keep coming back to the breath, right?
Yeah.
Because I think the more that we're able to observe our own thinking process and our own emotional experience, and the sooner we're able to sort of tap into that. It's easier to stop something in motion when it's not going very fast.
Yes.
But once it's already like, it's already at 60 miles an hour, like it's going to be a lot harder to put the brakes on.
Definitely.
So doing things, because, there are those sort of emergency emotional first aid type of things that we can do. But what we really want to do is to increase our ability to increase that sort of window of tolerance for things that feel uncomfortable, right? And we do that through exercise, through meditation, being able to have the language and being able to understand what's actually happening physically in our body, how that connects to the thoughts that we're having, and being able to really like understand that as a whole interconnected process and being able to change some of the mechanisms in that process in order to change the outcomes.
Yes. And I think this is so valuable. I feel like I'm good at paying attention to my body physically when it is being active. But when my mind is active, I don't do that very well. I've recently been kickboxing sometimes and I've been learning a lot and I've been paying attention to the form and how I should be doing it and like making sure that I do that every single time because it's kind of a new thing. I know that I'm capable of regulating that and paying attention to that sort of thing. I just need to practice doing it with my brain and making sure that its wheels don't pedal too fast sometimes.
And when they do, just being able to observe it as whatever's happening without judging it. I mean, I know like for myself, I'm a very inconsistent meditator. And usually when I'm returning back to the process, I try to focus on my breath and it's like my brain is just, it's about as busy as you can imagine. So for me, that's like, I'm just observing the busyness. And that is the beginning process of sort of slowing things down.
Yes.
Versus being like, damn it, I'm just trying to focus on my breath. I can't get more than like one cycle of it in and out before I'm thinking about 10 different things. Like if I do that, like that's just going to be a really frustrating process.
Yeah.
But if I'm like, oh, what's going on in Eric's brain today? Right? It's a very different process. It's just about curiosity. Like I bring a lot of humor to my meditation practice. I often I'm on this balance of like wonderment and like inappropriate amusement. And it really works for me.
That would be me. I would do the same type of thing.
Right? Because I sort of like because we are not our thoughts, right? Like our brain generates thoughts, right? We could observe those thoughts because of the way our brain works. And by having more of that detachment from it and entering more of that observer mind, we are able to stay a bit more regulated. Now,
Yeah.
what do you do as far as the first aid approach when you're like becoming dysregulated and you're having that like maybe panic or oh shit moment?
Well, uh, usually I sit and I don't do something that is going to try to distract me from thinking about it because I know that that is just fruitless. It's not going to happen. Like I just need to sit, ruminate, think about what just happened for a little bit. Sometimes just sitting, staring at something else and evaluating and just letting it be put to rest.
When you're sitting thinking about something else, are you coming up with like ideas?
A lot of times I will think about what happened and then I will
Mhm.
think how can I make either this situation better or situations in the future better? And sometimes I come up with a plan and then sometimes it doesn't really happen or sometimes it does. Like with work, I've been doing better. I had a good month. But with the whole test thing, I know for a fact that I would not handle another situation like that very well at all. But I don't have to. No more school. Thank God.
But there's always going to be scenarios where we might feel caught off guard, feeling unprepared,
You're right.
and sometimes the stakes are going to be high,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So having a sort of a toolbox filled of strategies that we can use when the brain is like on the verge of kind of freaking out, right? Even little things like drinking water. Like the moment you notice that like the heart's racing a little bit, drink water. It
Mm-hmm.
tells your brain that actually everything's actually okay. There's no like predator that's gonna like eat us, right? Like we're just, it's in a sense the anxiety of those kinds of moments is a sort of carryover from a very useful ability that we had when like it was eat or be eaten,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
If you need something even a little bit more kind of jolting to the system, this comes from DBT, from dialectical behavior therapy. Grab an ice cube and hold it in your hand for as long as you can,
That sounds like a good idea.
because your brain is all it's going to be thinking about is that ice cube.
Just the ice cube.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that would be a good idea. Um, I also, from listening to your podcast a lot, I listen to Atomic Habits too.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this one example when he talks about think about a situation where you feel happy, it's like petting your dog. And if every time you pet your dog, you take 4 deep breaths and then you pet your dog, then later on, if you take those 4 deep breaths again without your dog, you can feel happiness because you think about petting your dog. So, if I could find some way to just when I feel calm, have like a little thing that I do, kind of like that, then maybe I can, do the whole habit stacking thing that he talks about. And
Is there anyone that you know, whether it's work or personally, who can give you regular feedback about something that where you could also at the same time like even communicating this, rating yourself on like 1 through 10 like almost every minute while you're getting the feedback, to
Mhm.
just be really really mindful of like how you're feeling as certain pieces of feedback are received. I wonder if that, I mean, because feedback can be gold, right?
Yes.
And failure could be gold as well, by the way.
Oh,
It's
yes.
one of my favorite quotes is by Zig Ziglar, when his failure is an event, not a person. And
Yeah,
the moment we learn from a failure, it ceases to be one.
exactly. That's why I felt really good about the work situation. But after the fact, after I had received the feedback, and I can foresee it being difficult for me to emotionally regulate while I'm continuously receiving this feedback that I should be paying attention to, that I should be focused on because, respectful and professionalism and stuff. So I feel like if I could just practice, doing that, then I would just be better at it and I wouldn't have to focus on it so much. I guess it would just come with practicing that so that way, if my attention is supposed to be, kind of divided, like I should be receiving the feedback, I should also be making sure that I'm emotionally regulating or something like that. Or I guess it's not with every situation, like with the exam, it just told me 0 and that was it. And that's the only thing I had to pay attention to. And then it was just the world ended. But, you know, I guess I could practice in
Your
situations
your
like
your
that.
brain was sending you messages that was convincing you that the world had ended,
Oh, yeah.
even though it had not.
No, no. The world stayed exactly the same.
Screwed up as ever, right?
Exactly.
Is there anything else that you think would help you in either handling some of the uncertainty in various situations or being able to receive feedback that might be difficult to hear while staying regulated?
I think that the whole idea of paying attention to myself as an outsider is excellent. Just pretending like I am in some other area of the room, looking down at myself and just thinking of myself as a normal other person who is not freaking out. I think that could definitely help, just making myself an outsider and evaluating it from some other person's headspace, or at least pretending to, and then eventually maybe it will just become my headspace. It's still me. I'm just observing myself. And I think that would really help.
I think this is a good place to end.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun. I hope this was helpful for you.
Very.
Any kind of thoughts that you want to share just about like what's kind of the experience of this for you? Or is that kind of hard to do on the fly and needing to process afterwards?
I mean, I can give you some initial thoughts for sure.
Sure.
I think this was fabulous. I think it was great. I actually feel like I grew a little bit just from talking to you and a little bit of coaching that we had. And it's very high value to me in this moment, for sure. And I'm sure that it will continue to be that in the rest of my experiences.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your story and your experiences, and for doing this with me. I think one of the most important things that we do, it's great to learn about how to do different things. It's the doing that really is going to make the difference, right? And know that you're not going to do it perfectly, nor do you have to. A little bit of improvement done over time, like that's where growth really happens. It's not like one day we wake up and we're like, oh, we had this amazing epiphany and now everything's figured out. It's like, no, I think the thing that's really important for us as people with ADHD to really like keep reminding ourselves that growth takes longer than we want it to.
Yes.
But stay on the path and you'll keep moving forward.
Yes. Yes.
Danielle, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much for talking with me. And I had a really, really great time, and I appreciate you and everything that you do and your podcast, and just wow.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD reWired podcast network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD reWired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD reWired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you're a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD reWired podcast network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.